As hiring manager, you often hire people that you know has some kind of track record. Mm-hmm. I tried to be hired from a position where I was actually pretty successful into a role doing exactly the same and ended up as a catastrophe. Mm-hmm. And I think that sometimes we see this, past performance is not enough to be a successful leader. Mm-hmm. What happens when you transfer from one organization to another?
This is one of the areas where when we recruit people across organizations, that we need to pay attention to the transferability of experience and solutions. And there are two dimensions to that. First, when we start the job analysis and we want to recruit someone, we need to look at the position and then say, but the context we have right now, is that also the context we want going forward to support the intentions? So before we even start recruiting, we need to make sure that we can see this position also includes, we want someone to move the culture, to decentralize, to centralize, to ramp up the collaboration across silos or anything else. After that, when we then hire someone, in the hiring process, we need to elaborate and investigate the experience and then say, okay, we found the right girl and we want her into the organization. When that person lands, we need to make sure that that person becomes aware of what's the current context where I land, and we do that best by contrasting it to the context that the person comes from. So how is this different? What are the nuances here on the empowerment culture, on the focus on ambition culture, on the purpose culture? What are the interdependencies going in and out of my function, looking at the operating model you had in your previous job? And that's the immediate manager or the team that needs to sensitize the new leader to that. What often happens is that learning curve is simply not steep enough. We need to be more deliberate, we need to have a language around it, and we need to integrate. It's not enough to onboard, saying, okay, now you got the introduction, and we need to integrate, and that means we need to understand what are the contextual differences so that the leader can start thinking about what were the assumptions underpinning the way I set up my control systems, the way I set up my delegation, the way I set up team meetings, frequencies in our meetings, how much did we formalize the process and so on. We need to go to the assumptions. And these are the contextual assumptions. So we need to build that awareness in order to make sure that the leader does not start implementing methods and approaches that were apt in the previous context but are not apt in the current context. And then the other side of that coin is that the leadership team, where the leader belongs, has an interest in this. Because when we arrive at that level of contextual awareness, then that's also the trigger point where we should then say, okay, based on your past experience, what recommendations would you come up with? How can we optimize our context, our leadership, our operation further? But that fosters that we first build that shared mental model, understanding of the context and the key contextual parameters, because else we'll be transferring non-valid assumptions from one context to another.